Thanks for viewing this video, which is actually a follow-up video to the previous 39-minute video on the Discotheque Electra model. I had that box working. We went over some of the issues, and then I was just waiting on the needles. When they came in, I wasn't satisfied with the sound, and I went to make some adjustments, put in a new coupler, and I got in trouble. I hammered the coupler in and got the mechanism out of alignment, and I had to reassemble, basically take it out and clean it and adjust it again. And I want to go over the problems that developed. I think there will be worthwhile listening to some of these. And then the keyboard, I had failed to mention that when you put it on free play, you should disable the solenoid. And there's a way to do that. You just take off the two plugs, and then you push down with the two. This will be your letter, and this will be your number. And just push them down both at once at the same time. You have to put your drink down. You have to use two hands. But that's a safe way, and a way, even if your solenoid's bad, you can get by without it as long as your credit light's on and there's power to the keyboard. You can. And I'll show you this here on another keyboard just to demonstrate. Well, this is a stereo showcase keyboard with the two connections that hook in and connect to the solenoid, which is on the other end. In the Discotheque, there's a plug there that you simply disconnect. And disconnecting this does not really interfere with selection. Going on to the next issue is sound. I've only done a few of these Seeburgs, but I'm not very impressed with the early 60s Seeburg TSA 1 to 5 amp. Hey, that's an opinion. That's not based on any fact, but my brother has a Seeburg R from 1954. It's high fidelity, and honestly, it sounds better than these early 60s Seeburgs. And I want you to know that there are some things you can do to improve the quality of these amps. Now, once you got to the TSA 6, the LS1, TSA 7 on up, sound improved a good bit. And some of that was due to the fact that you didn't have that auto speed unit. And I'm going to talk about that here, because that seems to be a cause of some background motor noise that was very frustrating and got me in a little trouble here as I tried to remedy it and made some mistakes. But getting back to the TSA 4 amp, which is in this box, I'm going to show you an upgrade from Dr. Know-It-All's book. I want you to do this if you have the TSA 4 amp, because in the TSA 5 amp, which is marginally better, these improvements were incorporated. So here you go. This is on page 75 of Dr. Know-It-All's Seeburg book, volume 3, and it really relates to the driver boards. And this is the early edition that we want to improve on. And what ends up happening, you put an extra diode in this circuit. These are on the driver boards. I did it. It's not that hard to do. And then there's some changes here to the resistors that you also need to make. And this will result in some improvement in sound. Servicing the amp, the capacitors, and I replaced that transistor, and doing these upgrades is really not, it doesn't get rid of this annoying hum, which I believe is a mechanical motor hum at the beginning of and the end of the record. And others who are smarter than I have answered some of my inquiries, and the consensus seems to be, and it's a small consensus, that the auto speed unit with the higher hertz frequency that was needed to move it up from 33 RPMs to 45 RPMs, and these boxes, the LPCs, the Discotheques, and the stereo showcases, that auto speed unit interfered with the sound of the amplifier. And I thought, oh, well, geez, the auto speed unit, if you look underneath, it's right next to the amplifier. It sits right there. Well, I'm going to move it over behind the power supply. Yes, it's easy to do, and you should do that too. But honestly, it didn't help that much. And there is another article from Dr. Know-It-All's book, which is right above the previous article I showed you on the same page, page 75. And it goes through what you do with hum type of noise, which is mechanical hum. It's not your amp. It's not your cartridge. It's not your needle. You've got transmitted noise from the motor. So what do? Well, you replace that coupler I showed you last time, okay? And I had problems with this, so that's going to be another issue later in this video. But so you replace the motor couple. You want these to be flexible, see? And this one, certainly, the new one is. See, you want it to be like rubber. The one that was in there was like, hard candy. Sort of like the Rockola grommets. When you replace them, they're nice and soft, but the ones you replace they're hard like ice cubes. You know, they're just they transmit too much sound. So you do that, and then you try to. I'll show you here some other tips. Go to the motor, and this rubber here gets hard, and there's another one down at the bottom. So you loosen these brackets, and I even put some foam. It's like insulation you put stripping around your door. I put it between the bracket and the motor and put it in, but none of that really did too much. I lubricated everything, but still we had this hum. So here's a short clipping of the sound that you will get, which I thought was mildly objectionable. And you can minimize this by starting the record right smack on time, so you don't have to listen to the play-in period and listen to the noise. And then you can make sure the record shuts off quickly as soon as it's done, so you don't have to listen to the noise again. One tip that it is mechanical noise, and I think there's some truth to this. If you have like a hum or rumbling at the beginning of the record, then the record plays, and at the end of the record, when it's ready to reject, if that hum is louder, in these boxes, that makes sense that it's coming from the motor because the record is clamped there in the middle. It's rigid. It would be getting more vibration in a way from the motor. Where out at the periphery at the beginning of the record, it's just vinyl, and that extra vinyl sort of absorbs some of that. Now, I can't tell you that that's gospel, but it just sort of seems to make sense. So if you have that situation, which I did, at the end of the record, I thought that this hum, this turntable noise was more objectionable. And so all I could do was just start the record on time, finish it on time, put the coupler in, do the usual, and just deal with it, unfortunately. So here's a quick video, and then we're going to what the hum sounds like, and then we're going to move on to some selection issues and mech issues that came about. Well, I've got too much mech noise at the beginning here. Listen. The clarity is otherwise fine. I don't know what else to do. Despite this, I still replaced the coupler. My coupler was very brittle, and it only made sense to do it. Others have told me to do this. So you get the new one, and it's very flexible. But what they didn't tell me was that the hole in the end of this is not big enough. And I went to put it on the motor in the box, and I couldn't do it. And the same goes for the shaft up on top. I can't visualize it. Well, then I started to pound this in. I had taken loosened all the hex nuts, and I tried to pound it in. Never do that. That was just plain stupid. You're pounding on your drive shaft and could potentially injure it, but it was very frustrating. Never put these in without filing them out with a small circuit circular files. So you just go in the end and however you want to do it, but make this just marginally larger on each end so that when you put it on the motor shaft and the upper coupler, it goes on easily, and then connect it. Don't do what I did, because I think at least I thought I had damaged my drive shaft, and when I put the mechanism of the whole mech back in the jukebox, I had major problems and had to start over. So that's the second half of this video, is going over the issues that I had with the mech freezing up, not putting the record back again after I'd already done all this, and it was just terribly frustrating. So let me show you my 4 or 5 more issues here that I had, and I was able to get a solution for them, and hopefully it'll help you. Here's what my when I plugged my mech in after I replaced the coupler. Here's what I had, and you can imagine how frustrating this was. This is not the mech. Obviously, it's been parted, but I wanted to show you. This is what was happening when I turned on my mechanism. When I put it back in the box, it was just simply terrible, and this had to be resolved, obviously. Needless to say, that was very upsetting, and especially in a mech that I had already cleaned the clutch. I had oiled it, and it worked well for a while, and then after I did that hammer job on the coupler, I'm left with this. And what you're looking at there, as I know now, was a dirty camshaft, and as well as some further clutch adjustments and safety lever adjustments that needed to be made. So we're going to talk about them now. Here's my spare mech that I just want to use for illustration purposes. But remember, I had taken the clutch out, and I actually did all those 4 clutch adjustments. Honestly, I don't think I needed to do them, but I did because I was upset, and they didn't particularly help. And I did take out the took off the E-clips on the 2 sides. A lot of people have shown you how to do this, but when I took the E-clips off, my bar just dropped right out. I didn't have to tap it out. If you would have to tap out this bar through the bushing there, then obviously it needs cleaned and scrubbed. And mine actually looked pretty good. So there were no smoking guns with my clutch causing that problem you saw in the previous video. I also took out then the turntable, the cartridge tone arm cradle. This is easy to do. There's only 3 screws there to do. You have to loosen the brush assembly, and be very careful that you don't hurt these wires. The reject switch has to come off, and there's another switch here. Take them off. Do everything you can to prevent damage to the cartridge wires that hook there onto the 4 connectors. But I took it out just to clean this, because you have to wanted to double check to be sure this trunnion that goes back and forth was moved easily, and I did that, and I did this, and then I'm left with that mechanism that you saw there. And here was the problem, and it doesn't get a lot of attention. The whole shaft here of this cam assembly needs to be clean and freely movable. This is the camshaft, just for illustration. You're not going to need to do all this, but note that once you take off the clutch and the front tone arm assembly, this camshaft should move fairly freely, and there's 2 bushings here. This is one in particular. There's a access here for lubrication. Well, I sprayed some carburetor cleaner down there, and then I put some oil in, and then I applied a heat gun to this. And the same over here, the other bushing on this side where it goes through had to be cleaned. And I was able to get this to move a little better. You come over here to the side, and you should be able to move it with your hand. And initially I was not, so I thought I was making progress here. You must free up this shaft, and I'll show you here a little more movement that is expected. And then once I did that, I was in business. I made substantial progress. A little more detail on this here. What you want to do, we lubricated this, heated it, and of course don't heat anywhere near any plastic or wires. We heated over here, lubricated, and then I tried to move this, and you can, but what you need to do is lift the lever arm up, get it out of the divot there, and then look, this whole thing moves much easier. And you want to see that. You don't just have to lubricate the clutch. You've got to be sure this whole camshaft works. So if you can do this and get this to move, that went a long way to resolving my problem with the that abnormal motion and this guy clamping back and forth. It wasn't able. The whole shaft wasn't moving, and it was frozen up. So shame on me for not doing it the first time. I have to put a disclaimer in. You're not going to get this kind of motion if you haven't disassembled the clutch and taken off the tone arm cradle. And also, I should have mentioned, as you know, I disabled the motor shaft, so that's why you got that kind of motion. If you still have some of the components together, you at least want to go over here and turn the motor shaft manually and make sure this moves easily. That's so important. But at any rate, this if you're able to move it by hand, that means it's lubricated, but it also means that there's a lot of components removed and not nearly as much resistance. I just wanted to make that clear. 3 more problems. Now, the first problem was when the record would come up, we had it scanning, it would stop. When I flick the trip lever here, it would bring a record out, but it wouldn't always clamp it. And that turned out to be this lever. Before, it was not getting over too far. This time, for the record to set down in the play, for the roller to get into the play groove there, it has to have access, and it can't get access if this guy doesn't come all the way over, because it would be in the way of that cam lever that comes down. But if it gets all the way over and hits on this part, it has enough clearance to set down. The roller will set down in the divot and hold it in the play position. So once I made the adjustment, and again, a spring was weak, I replaced the small spring. It's right down there behind this guy. It kept it over, okay? It kept it all the way over, out of the way, so the record would set down, and I had a fix. Now, the next problem, I still, despite all my cleaning, I had issues with the record not going back into scan mode. When the arm came back down, it would hang up, and that's usually a clutch problem, but I had already cleaned all that, lubricated, done everything. So what I ended up doing was strengthening this spring that attaches here down to the bottom, because this spring tension is important to bring that roller down into that divot as it comes around. That spring sits here and it pulls down on the this lever, and that's what was necessary. I took a couple, I actually put a stronger spring in. Once I did that, I had a fix. So, all right, one more problem to go. Well, I thought I was home free. I put the mech now back in the jukebox, made all the connections, made a selection, and now it won't pick up the non-hit side. When it's traveling right to left, it wasn't picking up the B side. So, frustrating, but this problem, there's only a couple things that could be, and here they are. Circuitry involved for the readout when only one side is picking up, the other side isn't. It almost has to be something from here on. It's not going to be your power supply. It'll be either in that 1M34 switch. It's a flipper switch or flapper switch on the front, and going to the back where the 5 amp fuse and the readout plungers are, and the contact with the solenoid. So I looked at this. These are your plungers. I checked the continuity of all the little wires. There's a, well, just take my word for it. You have to look for broken wires underneath there, and I checked continuity. All of them seem to work. They come over through the mechanism, and they come out to the flapper switch here. And all I'm going to say is, this is a bad one, but what it turned out to be was one of the connections was shorted to the common one. And you had to look very closely, but all I did was move this over a little bit. It was shorting on the main common connection there. And once I did that, I had a fix. But that is not a bad circuit to trace. It doesn't go through all the other connections. It's pretty straightforward. It's really from your puck out here, your readout pins, the wiring, and the flapper switch. So I was able to identify that, fix it, and then I was home free. Put our box back together, and this is certainly a period piece. Say what you want, but I mean, you've got all the bases covered here: the swim, the waltz, the Charleston, oh my, bossa nova, Watusi, cha-cha, frug, F-R-U-G, and so it's certainly a worthwhile jukebox. The two black lights look quite nice in a dark room. I don't have this now, but hey, she's going to be sold here for $500, and someone's going to get a good working jukebox. It should be a lot of fun. Well, I'm going to conclude then with just the 4 takeaway points. Well, there are others, but the main issues here: be aware of the sound in these auto speed units, and do your best to minimize it through the maneuvers that we talked about here. Lubricate the gang cam assembly that goes across. Don't just lubricate the clutch and the mech. You must go into that oil well there and at least prove to yourself that it moves freely before you reassemble your box. Pay attention to the clutch and safety lever motion, and if you've cleaned them, made all those adjustments, clutch 1, 2, 3, 4, did all that stuff, consider putting a stronger spring on any lever that isn't pulling down like it should, and you'd be surprised at how often you'll get a fix. And then the last thing, never do what I did with the motor coupling. Always file that out on each end so it fits readily over the motor shaft and the upper shaft connection, and then assemble, because I got in a lot of trouble by banging up with a wrench on that assembly. I don't know why I did that, but all right. Well, we're still looking for a stroller and a stereo showcase in about a month to show you some wall box stuff. So thanks for watching.